Good day, Mission Podcast community. I'm your host and podcast navigator, Doug Dvorak, and I'm so very excited to bring you inspiring stories from incredible guests. These individuals are on a mission to create remarkable possibilities that not only enhance their lives, but also make a lasting impact on the communities around them. Stay tuned for some truly amazing conversations. Welcome to the Mission Possible podcast, Layne.
Hi, it's so great to be here, Doug. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So you're Dora the Explorer. Where are you today?
I'm in Bologna, Italy, and I have this wonderful Airbnb, beautiful, and have been exploring everything around Bologna in what they call the Emilia-Romagna area. Never knew that, and it's been a lot of fun exploring, so thank you.
So the Mission Possible mindset, when you come from a place of honesty, integrity, kindness, and you put that vibe out. I met Layne about 4 months ago biking in the Baltics, and she and my wife Kathy hit it off, and I was just inspired by her life story, her success, her Mission Possible mindset about giving back and really living each day as an adventure. And those stories behind the lanes of the world, turning big visions into real victories. So as I mentioned, we're joined by an extraordinary guest, Layne Gray. She's a trailblazing author, seasoned entrepreneur, and angel investor who's dedicated her career to empowering ideas, building businesses, and backing bold founders. From writing words that inspire to launching ventures that thrive to fueling the next wave of startups with capital and guidance, Layne is a powerhouse of innovation and insight. Get ready to discover her journey, her lessons from the entrepreneurial battlefield, and her perspective on why every mission is possible when passion meets purpose. Let's dive in with Layne. Layne, again, thank you. It's a high honor and privilege. So, a lot of different areas, buckets, experiences in your life, from entrepreneurial, from being a serial entrepreneur, but also to a published author in storytelling. So let's start with author and storytelling, Layne. What inspired you to write your books, and what message do you hope readers walk away with?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you, Doug, first for having me, and second for asking that question. The novel that I wrote is something that's personal because I am divorced, and that's a really tough journey to go through. And so many friends brought their friends to me because I had a very amicable split, and they wanted to figure out how to do that. So I decided to actually write a book that really addressed one of those kernels of truth. So there's two themes. One is in our current society, it is okay to get divorced. It is okay to split and move on to something else. You don't have to feel guilty about that. On the other hand, our previous generation, our parents, they really worked at relationships, and do we not do that enough? So there's a juxtaposition between those two altering issues, and so I tried to address that in this book, and so that's really what it's about. It's kind of a fun little tale. It is not autobiographical. A lot of people ask that. But it's a lot of fun, and there's some sexy parts of the main character's relationship with this nomad and all sorts of things. So that's a lot of fun. So that's the first book. The second one.
What is the title? What is the title, and how can our viewers access it?
Yeah. Oh well, thank you. It's called Crushed. Happily Ever After 2.0. Meaning, in our technology world, it's the second iteration of what it used to be of splitting up. And now I'm actually working twofold. One is on the follow-up, because it surely it was not a New York Times bestseller per se, but I have somewhat of a cult following, which is really wonderful. And so that's really, really fun. So working on the second book, also working on just the outline of the screenplay. I always say that authors are not particularly good at writing screenplays, so I don't put myself in that position, but I'm trying to do a treatment for it, because it's a unique story, and it's something that hasn't been told before, and I think that it would be a lot of fun for people to see, and quite poignant. So, yeah.
I just finished my 17th book, and I remember the first one. I don't share that to brag, but I remember the weight of the first book and trying to figure it out. Can you unpack for our authors? Because I meet unbelievable people that are very successful, proficient, thought leaders, and they always tell me, I wish I had wrote a book. I've got this idea. Can you unpack for our listeners, if they have an idea of a book, how do you get started?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I think it's particularly profound right now because of AI. You can just plug some things into ChatGPT and it'll come back and say, well, this may be something. We didn't have that 8-10 years ago. And I think starting with a core of what you're trying to communicate. And I think that, I think that is probably true in most every book that's written, is what do you want to accomplish? And even if you were to take that core and put it into ChatGPT, you'd still have something that was true to you. So that's probably where I would start. And then I worked with a dear friend who is an incredibly accomplished author here in Europe. And he and I went away for a week, and we created the whole graph. And when the antagonist is up, the protagonist is down, and we had this graph and how it all worked out. And it was a lot of fun to go through, because there are those characters in my book. So it could be a lot of fun. I think most people should probably work with a writer's group. I did not, but I think that that's a really great place to start. It's also a very lonely journey, in that you and Doug, 17 books. Oh my God. I think there are some times when you're just so focused and there's nothing. You can't have anything else. You're just completely focused. So that's its own being. I didn't hate that, because I liked being truly in the story, because it's fiction. So the process for me was really enlightening. It was great. It was lonely. It was exciting. It was, when I would write some prose. So I wrote a lot of things because I read a lot, and I would write all these different things down, of like little quips that others would say. Obviously, I would not replicate them, because that's replication. But I would take little tidbits from this and that to put into my storyline. So it was a great process. It was a long process. It takes a long time.
But I'd never asked you this when we were biking together, but I get the vibe that it was fun. It was challenging. It was work, but have fun with it. It's not a sentence. It's not a sentence to writer's prison. So, Layne, how has being an author shaped the way you communicate as a leader and entrepreneur?
Well, I think the first thing that it does, and probably the most thing that it does, is it gives me it sounds trite, but it gives me proper English. When I write emails, not when I talk, because I put ums every once in a while, but when I write, I do pretty proper English. So that's one thing. Two, in the bigger picture of what you're asking is how is that impacted? I think it's just the possible and the impossible. It's the fact that you can create something in your mind, which is the book, the novel, create something in your mind, and then you can relate from an entrepreneurial standpoint as to somebody creating something that's different, much bigger. It's a really great question, Doug, because I do think that the fact that I wrote this and had to create all these characters and storylines, etc., that I can look at an entrepreneur and say, sure, yeah, that's really, I can believe in that. So it's interesting.
And we're always, at least in the U.S. and probably Western Europe, we're always tethered to a device, and to uncouple and be alone with one's thoughts in a pad of paper or a laptop, that alone time for creative, critical thinking, it's just wonderful. I enjoy it. I'm trying to make a conscious content. I'm trying to consciously untether more from the devices and just be alone with my thoughts, or a great conversation. That's great advice. So Layne, do you see storytelling as a tool for business and investing? If so, how? Because you're really a storyteller at heart.
Yeah, yes. Well, first off, the book is storytelling. But second off, I think that you're spot on in terms of investments. So I look to investments as an angel investor.
Can you unpack what angel investor is? Because there's private equity, there's venture capitalists. What is an angel investor for our listeners, please?
Okay, so an angel investor takes on incredible risk. They come in at the earliest stages. So if there's some sort of a graph, which I'm creating, if there's some sort of a graph, it's somebody's the creator's money, friends and family, angel investor, and then venture capital, early investor venture capital. Then there's all sorts of other levels of venture capital. So an angel investor goes in, and he or she actually takes what is called a convertible note. And so they don't get stock. So they will put in, for example, $100,000. That's my norm, $100,000, and that is a convertible note. So supposedly, and it's really interesting that actually never delved into this. That is refundable, but nobody ever does it. Anyway, above and beyond that. You put in $100,000, for example, and then you negotiate certain terms. Terms are, one, that if a venture capital firm comes in, you get most favored nation, meaning that any terms they have, you get. Two, you get a discount because you are an early investor. So you should ask for a 20% discount. So if the venture capital comes in at $1 a share, you should be at 80 cents a share. So you ultimately you get a 25% boost on what you have done. So there's a few things that you should do. And so the venture capitalist comes after. What they usually do is they convert everything into stock. So your convertible note now goes into stock, and that's where you get the conversion.
So is an angel investor just writing a check, or do you write a check and then act as a coach or mentor to the business or an advisor as well?
Excellent question. Yes and no. So sometimes you just write a check, and sometimes I have taken an active role. So I think my biggest investment, Rothy's, which is now a $1 billion corporation. I was having, lunches with the founders, helping them, etc. But as they grew and major investors came in, Goldman Sachs, etc., came in, they no longer needed me. So, which is totally fine. So you just kind of take it as it is. I have some friends who are, very haughty, and they're on multiple boards, and they get to declare what they want. Mine, I don't really need to be on a board. So I'm really cool with just being able to advise. So being able to have lunches with the founders. And Rothy's, back to them,
What is Rothy's?
It's actually a shoe company, and they the shoes are made out of recycled water bottles, and what is it? Alpargatas invested, which has the Havaianas, the little flip-flops. So they actually bought 49% of Rothy's for $1 billion valuation, which is super cool. But Rothy's continues to excel and building up through Europe, around the world. So I continue to advise and interact with their CMO, their COO. So that's really great. And actually, for anybody who's watching this, it's very rewarding. I don't need that formal position, although some people may ask for it. I don't. But it's really fun to be able to interact. So I send them all sorts of ideas, and most of them they respond to. So it's all good.
Excellent. Well, let's morph over from the first pillar of authorship and storytelling to entrepreneurship. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. And can you walk us through your first entrepreneurial venture and what you learned from it?
Yeah, my first entrepreneurial endeavor was actually an event company. So
That, by the way, you started with 0 and grew and scaled it to over 30 team members and 20 million in revenues, right?
Yep.
Wow.
I did. Thank you. And so that started out as we talked about my divorce. I was married at the time. I threw a big party for my husband's big birthday, and it was really great. And got to give him credit. He was like, you know what? You can really throw a great party. So why don't you combine your tech background, because I'd been with Oracle and some other computer companies, and with your love of giving a party. And I was like, a great idea. So I reached out. This is so long ago. It'll definitely date me in that I sent letters out to people, which nobody sends letters anymore. And that's how it got started. And it grew quite big. And the reason it grew large is that my background was tech and marketing, but tech. But I wasn't party. And so what we tried to do was dovetail a client's mission, marketing mission, like an annual mission, into the various events that they wanted to complete. And that was very successful. And then there was the tech bust. And so I sold off a bunch of the various events. But we grew one in particular from 0 to 15,000, which is really cool. It's called the RSA conference, and it continues now. I think it's the largest cybersecurity conference. It's probably, fivefold of that at this point. We concluded in 2000 and somewhere in the 2000s. So anyway.
Excellent. What's been your biggest challenge as a founder, and how did you overcome it?
I think my biggest challenge is I think as an angel investor, switching over, looking at investing in a company, I don't want to invest in a company that doesn't have a co-founder. Because if it's just one guy or gal, that's the person. And so I think one of the biggest challenges is that in the various startups I've created, I haven't had a co-founder, and so that has been a challenge. I've tried to in the latest one, the mascara company, best mascara in the world, in the mascara company, and it just didn't work out. So yeah, that's an issue.
Excellent. How do you identify, Layne, when an idea is worth pursuing and when to let it go?
I think it's really interesting. I don't know that we always know when something is worth pursuing versus letting go. So for those people who can do that, fantastic. If you can't, I think it's baby steps. I think going a little bit in trying to pursue, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be looking at the positive. If you're looking at the negative, it's not the world for you. But if you're looking at the positive, it's like, okay, let me try these things. Sometimes an entrepreneur can go too far. And I'll talk about that on a much bigger picture in a moment. But you have to say, okay, let me try these things. If they don't work, let me step back, try to go up, and just try to go back and forth. The interesting thing that's much bigger is that, a lot of companies, one in particular, Altos Computer Systems, which no longer exists in my early career, is that the founders think they can continue to go into perpetuity, and that they're successful at creating something, and that means they're going to be successful above and beyond, which is usually not true. I think a lot of companies has done that very successfully in moving on. What is one? Rothy's. Okay. The shoe company, 2 founders, fantastic. Roth is a incredible designer. Steven, co-founder, was a great finance guy from Roberts and Stevens, which is an old investment banking firm. Great. But then, as the company grew, they realized they weren't the right guys. And they brought in, actually, it's an all-female team. Not that they were looking specifically for that. They were just looking for the best of the best. And I think it's really important for companies to understand that they need to change, they need to add talent to what they're doing.
Excellent. Layne, many entrepreneurs talk about failure as part of the process. What's one failure that actually set you up for success?
So I think a failure that I had was that I was actually trying to help nonprofits raise money. And so I created this platform called Motivate that nonprofits would send used clothes and we would sell them and then give the proceeds back to them. I was so excited about that. I absolutely loved what we were doing and being able to help these nonprofits. It did not succeed, and a lot of the used clothes platforms haven't necessarily been profitable. So I thought I was early in the process, but it doesn't really matter. It didn't work. And how did that help me succeed? It made me realize that not everything is just going to be perfect, that you have to actually make things happen that are worthwhile. So what I was doing with the Motivate was trying to help nonprofits, and that was kind of I don't know if you would call it a soft sell. But if you really, really want to make it in business, it has to be a hard sell. And so that really set me up into angel investing. And it's like, what am I looking for? What do I expect, etc. So I thought that was really profound.
Excellent. So what drew you into angel investing and what excites you most about working with startups?
Oh my God. I mean, angel investing is very risky for anybody who's, thinking about it. It's, somebody asked me one time, how can you use your retirement? The answer is no. It has to be auxiliary money that is you're not dependent on anywhere else. So that's number one. But it's a lot of fun if you find companies that are doing super interesting things. Right now, I am out of the curve because I'm primarily in Europe and not in the fold anymore. But AI, actually, the wave is probably already gone with AI. But it's a lot of fun, and I think working with entrepreneurs who are doing interesting things. For me, let's go back to my reference of Rothy's. Taking marine plastic that are these plastic bottles that get sent out into the sea and are reused, etc., and making those into really stylish shoes is super cool. So that's really, really fun. I'm working with another company that is allowing their initial, what I would call a hyper silo. Their initial audience are hairstylists who are experts to their clientele. Like when I go to my hairstylist, if he uses a particular product, I want to buy that product. Well, this actually monetizes that. So that's really fun. So I really enjoy those aspects. I'm different in that I'm not part of a group. I'm not part of a investor group. So I think there are more formal organizations who look at broader opportunities. For me, it is opportunities that are brought to me by friends and associates.
So Layne, what qualities do you look for in founders when deciding to invest?
Interesting that you asked that, Doug. It is the founders that are most important. The product, absolutely. But if you had to qualify or rate them, it would be the founders, number one, and then the product, number two. Because and it has to be two founders, as I said previously, just not one, because you've got to have the yin and the yang. If one goes, the other's here, etc. I look for, obviously everybody looks for somebody who's had success before, of course. But if you're looking at a 22-year-old, which is way too young for me, but if you're looking at somebody fresh out of college and he or she has a great idea, you want to evaluate it. And I am not a technophile, despite a math degree. I'm not the guy or gal who's looking at deep coding. I'm looking at something that is accessible by the consumer. Those are important aspects to me.
How do you balance the emotional side of believing in a founder with the practical side of evaluating risk?
This is difficult. Yeah, you have to.
Do you go with the data, and then ultimately you go with your gut after you've processed the data?
Well,
looking at, or what's your approach?
Yeah. It's sort of like me with traveling. I travel so much here in Europe, and I go to Airbnbs and I read the reviews of the Airbnb, and that helps me make a decision. I look at, on the one hand, of the beauty of their view or the apartment, and the other hand, what other people are saying. And so I think it's just a balance. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah, for me and my father-in-law, who is very successful, it's got to pass the smell test after you've looked at all the data. And for me, when I deploy capital, I ensure that I look at the data, make intelligent decisions, then I ultimately go with my gut in addition to the data points. Have you noticed any particular trends or industries that you think are especially promising for the future?
AI.
Yeah, AI is, I believe it's in the evolution of human progression in history. We're going to look back at this as a seminal event, and I say it's embrace it. You don't have to get so deep to write code or AI prompts, but it is like having a super assistant that you don't have to pay, you don't have to manage, you don't have to insure. It's allowed my business, my creativity to flourish, and the volume of good work that I can do as a result of chat and Claude and all those other tools is amazing. So it's going to be interesting how that evolves and plays out. Let's morph to women in business and investing. What unique perspective do you think female entrepreneurs and investors bring to the table?
Emotion. I think that's more than anything else. It's emotion. I don't know that there's anything else I need to say.
Okay. Have you faced challenges breaking into the investing space as a woman, and how did you navigate them?
Interesting question. Initially, the answer is no, because I don't really think of my involvement in investing as being a woman versus a man over here. But there have been tones that have shown that that maybe my perspective has not been as important as others. Has that been prevalent? No, in one particular investment it has, but in others it has not. So I don't, it's interesting, Doug, that you asked that question, because for me, I don't really think of myself as a woman investing. I think of myself as an investor. and perhaps, whom I'm working with, who I'm talking to, who I'm potentially investing in, looks at it that way, and you can get inklings of that. There's been one in particular that I've chosen not to work with because I got the sense that that my perspective was not equal to theirs. So, I think you just need to be aware. Am I bitter because women are not perceived as great as men? No. We just have to persevere.
Yeah, I look at, related to that question I asked, Lincoln and his cabinet. Some presidents surround themselves in their cabinet with like-minded people. What Lincoln did is he wanted divergent views, and I think the richness of females, diversity, different points of view on a board, or my personal board of directors that I look to for big life decisions and investment, I want that diversity and certainly a female's perspective. Layne, what advice would you give to women who want to step into entrepreneurship or angel investing but feel hesitant?
Okay, so first, entrepreneurship. I think if you've got a really great idea, I think you need to talk to a bunch of friends and or family and see what they think. Then move out to the next layer of the onion and talk to some people who might have a relevant impact or idea, and then go out from there. So that's how we would do entrepreneurship. Angel investing is a totally different, business. That is, you have a core amount of investment dollars that you are willing to spend. I don't recommend spending more than 10% of what your core is on any one particular investment. So if you've got $1 million, I don't, as disposable, again, not retirement, not anything else, has to be disposable. Because it can, and most of it will go away. So anyway, so say you have that, and I know that is highfalutin, but the reality is that nobody wants $1,000 investment. So that's just not realistic for angel investing. If you want to be in the big leagues, and so putting those out there, I have only done 2 repeat investments. I've done many that have been 1, and then 2 in particular. I felt that their growth patterns warranted additional money, which they needed, and they've continued to grow. No outcomes yet, but so does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk about the mission possible mindset. What does the phrase mission possible mean to you as an author, entrepreneur, and investor?
Oh my gosh, Doug. First off, I just love the concept. I think mission possible says it all. We all understand mission impossible. So there's that juxtaposition to possible. And it is, to me, what it means is that you're on this journey, mission, and you're trying to make it happen. And that's exciting, and scary and thrilling and all sorts of things. And I think with your particular podcast, I think it's really compelling that you are can kind of be that safety net. Because I think you work with companies, individuals, etc., to kind of help them get from the idea and from that scary point to the next level. So yeah, that's what I think.
So let's take it up with my favorite part, the tail end of the interview, the rapid fire round, fun and engaging. So 5 questions. Will whatever comes to mind. Three, 2, 1. Awesome, Layne. Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed our time together. Now, my favorite part of the Mission Possible podcast, the rapid fire round, fun and engaging. I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions. First thought that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yes.
All right. First business book you ever read?
Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence.
Excellent. One startup you wish you invested in early?
Facebook.
Coffee, tea, or champagne to celebrate a win?
Tea.
What's your personal motto in business?
Okay. Go. Think. Revise.
Go, think, revise. Excellent. Next big dream on your entrepreneurial or author's journey?
I think I'd really love to have the first book, because I really believe in it. The first book, Crushed, made into a TV series. Maybe a movie, but really now that Netflix et al. Creates those, because I think it's a really a cool story to be told.
Excellent. My guest has been Layne Gray. She's in Italy. She's an author, entrepreneur, very successful, but a very kind person, and an angel investor. Layne, if our listeners, viewers want to purchase your book, tell us where they can purchase it. Give us your website and how they can reach out.
You're so sweet. Thank you. It's laynegray.com. It's not to promote it. I'm not
LayneGray. So LayneGray.com. Are your books on Amazon and Kindle?
Yes, they are.
We're not in France.
Yeah, I know. Living in Paris is I confuse so many languages, despite the fact that English is obviously my first. So, Doug, thank you so much. It's so sweet of you to invite me. I'm so appreciative, and if I can provide any input or advice to anyone, I'm really happy about that. So, thank you.
Great. Our guest has been Layne Gray. Thanks, Layne. Really, the time has flown. It's been an awesome opportunity, and thank you for the privilege of your time to get into Layne's Mission Possible mindset. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and missionpossible.biz. Carpe diem.
Thank you.